Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. We are going to discuss some Ahsoka casting news. Now, there's been a lot of casting of characters who we knew, and they're not keeping it a secret. Like, we knew that, I forgot the actress's name, but she'll be playing Sabine. We have a Sabine actress. Mary Elizabeth Winstead's been cast, and we're not entirely sure who she's playing. It is a quote-unquote mystery role. So, who knows who she's playing. But, I mean, if I were to venture a guess, I would say Hera Syndulla. That would be my guess for Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Similarly, I would guess that this most recent edition is going to have some ties to an old book that a lot of people are very fond of, that I think Ahsoka will be borrowing heavily from. Variety is reporting that Ray Stevenson has joined the cast of Ahsoka in an unnamed villainous role. And they don't know who it is. They're keeping it under wraps. We know Thrawn will be in the show, but we don't know who Thrawn is, and they were very specific about the fact that this guy is not playing Thrawn. He will not be playing Thrawn in this new show. So, who is he playing then? Now, if I remember my Rebels history correctly, Admiral Pelion made an appearance in Rebels. And Admiral Pelion had a huge role in the show, in the book Heir to the Empire, but they moved around Thrawn and all of that within the confines of when it happened. In the original continuity that happened in the early 90s, Heir to the Empire takes place after Return of the Jedi. And the movie actually opens with Thrawn looking on at the destruction of the second Death Star, seeing the Executor fall into the into the superstructure and explode, and he's like, "Well, I'm out. This is a failure. We're gonna leave now, so that way we don't die too." And then the Chimera kind of goes off into space like that. In the new continuity, Thrawn takes place. His whole thing is between episodes 3 and 4. He's fighting Rebels, the team from Rebels on the Ghost. Now, what does this mean for Admiral Pelion? Because he did not die in Rebels. Filoni was pretty explicit about that he did not die in Rebels. And Filoni said, I'd like to see that character's story continue at some point in the future. I'm thinking that's who Ray Stevenson is playing. He is, for a lead character, and if we look at not just Thrawn, the character there, but if we look at Thrawn and what has happened, beyond the death of Thrawn in the Last Command, he's still the lead and in charge of the He's still in charge of what's left of the Empire 10 years after that, or 5 years after that, whenever the hell the Hand of Thrawn duology takes place. At that point, he's still in charge. And he still has a huge role to play. Where, the Empire is like, look, we're going to come up with terms of surrender. And he's the one who's like, look, we can't keep fucking doing this. After a certain point, there's only so much fighting we can do and have an outcome that works. So having him play Pelion would actually be an interesting idea. And he looks the part a little bit, too. And I think that, there's a lot of things that could be done here that could be explored in a more deep and intricate way if they turn Ahsoka into basically Heir to the Empire. And that would be really interesting. I think that the question becomes, really there's the issue of how do they rectify that with what we've seen so far. I think that there's the idea that we can have two different, overarching Defenders-style universes of Star Wars. Up until the end of the Book of Boba Fett, I thought there was a possibility that we would end up with this, confrontation between, between Crimson Dawn and and Boba Fett and all of them. That's who I thought was going to show up, and then that didn't happen. Cad Bane happened instead, and that was unfulfilling. So I think that the idea that Thrawn is going to be the thing that kind of unites people in a fight, I think you can do two different timelines. You can do what happens between 3 and 4 in live action, which is the story of, this person is right up my ass. The story of, what happens, there. And you can do Crimson Dawn in that regard. You can bring Han back with Alden Ehrenreich. You can do Kenobi. You can do Andor. You can do, who else is there in that era that they have? They have a Lando show in development. You can do all of that and go to a Crimson Dawn show taking on her. But at the same time, because of the comic, we know she doesn't die. But it would still be interesting to see what causes her to go dormant until the Empire is nearing its end, between episodes 5 and 6. Then there's also the Mando times where they can do the last death rattles of the Empire, where it's okay, so here's Thrawn trying to do this, and now you can have Mando, you can have Boba Fett, you can have Ahsoka, you can have all of these characters kind of trying to do basically the same thing. It's just they're trying to take on Thrawn and defeat Thrawn, and I think that'd be an interesting thing to do, and do a team-up show that's basically The Last Command. I don't, and the thing is, they've kind of planted the seeds for Force-sensitive cloning, which, to an extent, is them setting up, getting to the end of the sequels, where there is the clone of, what's his name, of Palpatine. I don't think that's, that would feel like a waste. That's all they were doing is and here's how Palpatine started planning his clone army of himself, and I feel like it's, not a great idea. I feel like there's a better way to use it, and the better way to use it is the clone of Luke and the clone of all of that, especially since we see that the hand of Luke, which was famously used to create Luke, as it's pronounced in the audiobook, Luke with 2 U's, that hand is in the possession of the Empire. And because that hand is in the possession of the Empire, it could be used to create a new, to create a new clone of Luke, an evil clone of Luke. And it'd be interesting if we see, I'm gonna say it again, Sebastian Stan playing that role. Maybe not. Who knows? But that's all we have for today, so until next time, have a great rest of your weekend, and enjoy the Super Bowl.